Hola, ¿cómo están?
Buenos días, bien, gracias.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Welcome everybody.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Hola, buenos días.
Okay, we will be waiting one more minute, and then we will start. I see we have participants who speak in Hebrew English, so we will go on English. And if anybody has any special question in Spanish, we will try to translate. Let's give one more minute. Okay, so good morning and good afternoon. We have some participants from Mexico and other countries in Latin America. We have some participants from here from Israel, so welcome everybody. I am very I just want to welcome you to this interactive webinar. For those who don't know me, I'm Rina Feinstein. I'm the founder and CEO of Noga Plus. We are a company that bridges between Israeli technology and Latin American markets. During the few last weeks, we have been done some webinars in different topics, and we will continue to do so in the next, in the upcoming months. In this opportunity, we will talk about various elements of the Israeli ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, and we will comprehend, and the idea is how they are connected, how the dots connect between the different dots connect. The idea is to share with you how it works in this small ecosystem. We have startups, we have that need these contacts to be done. We have multinationals, we have investors, we have accelerators, we have incubators, and we have service providers. In this webinar, we will have the part of the accelerator and investor from one side. We'll have the part of service providers from the lawyer point of view. We might have a startup. We plan to have one, but we have babysitters problems with our startup. So in a few words, I might say who will be participating. Okay. So I am honored to count with the presence of Dr. Harold Wiener. Can you say hello? Thank you. And we also have from Terra Ventures, and we have also Ilana Soloducho. Ilana, can you say hello? Ilana is from Pearl Cohen. I will let every one of you to present yourselves and say also a few words about you, and a few words also about what is your daily doing here in Israel, and how are you related with the ecosystem? I think before presenting you, I will say a few words about Noga Plus. Let me share my screen. Okay. Great. So, as I said, we bridge, Noga Plus bridges between Israeli innovation and Latin American markets. We work with the Israeli ecosystem. We know it very well. There are a lot of dots that connect them. We talk about the government, the military, the culture of empowerment, what we have a competitive structure. We have a strong VC ecosystem, and we have industrials and multinationals. So this is part of our ecosystems, and this is Israel, what it is in a small, very small country with, now we are almost 9 million in a very small area, and we had 3.9 unemployment. We have rise until 25% unemployment, but now we are a little bit down, coming to around the 10%, hopefully. And just a few words. I won't talk too much about all these projects. I just want to say a few words about us. We do technology scouting for a big and a multinational from Latin America. We do projects of investment in Israeli technologies. We have an innovation hub that is we are going to do the kickoff in January 2021. And what we do is we connect very big multinationals from Latin America. Our leading partner in this innovation hub is Grupo Bimbo, but we have another companies that are joining us. And what we do is we connect them with the ecosystem, with the startups. These are only 2-3 examples of some of the startups that we have, but we do all the process from understanding the corporate's need to connect them with very high-level startups, and then help them to do POCs or to do different kinds of pilots in the corporate. So this is part of our services. We do conferences, we do workshops. We have developed a unique methodology that combines co-creation and design thinking, really interesting. And we have also done it using digital media. This was very interesting. And we had once, before COVID-19, we have delegations coming to Israel. Hopefully we will have them next year. And thank you very much for hearing. And now I would like to ask Ilana, ladies first, and then we'll be happy to hear also a few words about Harold. So Ilana, please.
Thank you, Rina, and thank you for having me in this panel, especially near someone as important as Harold. So it's my pleasure to be here. My name is Ilana Soloducho. I'm a lawyer at Pearl Cohen. I'm Uruguayan, born and raised. I'm in Israel for 12 years now, and I work as a high-tech lawyer since I'm here. I was a lawyer in Uruguay also before, but my expertise since I'm in Israel is the high-tech industry. Pearl Cohen is an international law firm having offices in the United States, London, and Israel, and that way we can give an holistic approach to our customers. And being that our main focus is technology, the bridge between United States and Israel is basic, and inside the law firm, I'm also a partner in the high tech desk, and I co-chair the Latin America and Spain department in the firm, together with Manny Broyd, he's Mexican, and we co-direct the desk together.
Right.
In general, we are a full-service law firm, so we can assist in any matter that a client might need.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you want to, and Terra.
Okay. First of all, very, very pleased to meet you all, to be with you in Mexico and in other parts of the world. My name is Harold Wiener. I'm the managing partner of Terra Venture Partners. It's a venture capital, plain vanilla venture capital, with two characteristics. We are impact investors, so we invest only in companies with an impact in the quality of life of people in the fields of energy, clean tech, healthcare, medical devices, digitalization of the old economy, wellness, and more. And the second characteristic is that we won a very competitive and the most sophisticated tender for innovation in Israel from the Israeli Innovation Authority, or from the government of Israel, which is called the Incubator Program, in which we get an amazing leverage of $600,000 for every $100,000 that we invest in every company in our fields. I'm Uruguayan by nature. I was born and raised as Ilana. I'm not a lawyer. She's the best lawyer in high tech in Israel, so I will let her be the lawyer among us. And I'm a chemist by education with a PhD in chemistry from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And in general, I wanted to be a football player, but I ended up studying chemistry, so this is what we have today. Our fund manages about $100 million. We are raising our third fund. We have an amazing support from the government of Israel and from the ecosystem in Israel as well. And we have 30 companies under management, in which most of them are in the fields that are very, very good for every place in the world, not only in Israel. Of course, Israel is so small that this is not a market. So Israel for us is a very, very good pilot country, probably the best pilot country in the world, very, very concentrated, very small, and very agile and very innovative. And we try to do, you know, what looks very impossible nowadays is to do good and to make money at the same time, investing in the most promising technologies in Israel and trying to scale up all over. We are active with at least 10 companies in Latin America. In some countries, like in Brazil and Mexico, we have some companies already established there. And again, we deal with all the problems, all the big problems in this world. We think that the corona is tough, but it's going to pass and it's going to be solved. But it's a very, very wake-up call, very good wake-up call for all of us to focus our energies, our time, and our money in trying to solve problems for the future, and not show what's happening today is that we feel very, very fragile, and we are dealing with this problem in a very, very irrational way, as a lack of understanding of science, of basic science. And I wish you all a very, very good evening, and also a prompt recovery in Mexico, in Brazil, if somebody from there, from the corona. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, you both. I will ask you now, each one of you, some questions. And I also will like the participants, if you have any questions, please write on the chat. We'll try to answer them when we finish. Let's now start with you, Harold. Can you share with us some information, first of all, regarding what is a technological incubator in Israel that is very different from what the people have in mind from a university incubator in Latin America? So this would be the first point. And I would like to ask you is if you, as an investor now, from the point of view of an investor, what are the 2 or 3 most important features you are looking when you do due diligence process with these new startups that you are looking at?
Okay, so let's start from the first point. The incubator program is a very old program. It's almost 35 years old in Israel. To my modest opinion, is the best innovation program worldwide because of the amazing support of the government for people that wants to do things that will change the world for good. We are backing companies that are doing really amazing things. There is no difference, in fact, between the innovation in Israel and the innovation in Latin America. I can give you hundreds of examples that very amazing companies and ideas were developed in all the continent in Latin America. The difference between Israel and the Latin American countries or other incubators is first of all, a massive support of the government of Israel that I didn't find in the continent in Latin America. And the second one, that is something that is in the culture and it's related to the first one of the related to support of the government, is that in Israel there is no fear to fail. On the contrary, failure is part of life. If you don't do anything, you don't fail, but if you do things, you will fail sometimes. It's very important to fail more than less than we succeed, of course. But I think that what I've seen in the ecosystems of innovation in Latin America is that there is still a little bit of fear to fail. There is something that is seen as a problem, and I think that this is something that the innovation ecosystem will have to overcome if they want to really make a very big progress. I'm trying to help some of the ecosystem in Latin America to implement the same incubation program like in Israel. I did it well in Uruguay because I'm local there. I am trying to do it in Mexico as well. It's not easy. So because of there is no support from the government in general terms, I think that the ecosystem will have to find a replacement, and the replacement is there because the ecosystem of the industry and the corporates that we have in Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, to name some of them, is amazing, is big. You will not find the size of industry that you have in Mexico and Israel, even in 150 years from now. There is no reason to build those kind of giants in Israel because we don't have a market. We are only 9 million people, from which 2 don't really work, 2 don't really take a part of the innovation ecosystem. We have 3 million kids, so you see that the market in Israel is non-existent. And I believe that there is a very, very amazing potential in Latin America. You have the same innovation, the same brains, the same creativity like you find in Israel or the Silicon Valley. There is no doubt that this is not missing there. What is missing is a strong support from the government or a replacement for a strong support of the government. So this is to tell you what we do. As I said, we get $600,000 from the government for every project that we invest or we decide to invest. We see more than 800 ideas per year, and we invest in 3 or 4 if I'm lucky. And it's not because I don't want to invest, it's because the only limited resource in this life is not energy, it's not water or food or even money. The only limited resource is time. So we want to invest our time in a wise way in order to promote those companies that will really make a change if they succeed to overcome the valley of technology, meaning they come to me with an idea, sometime with a proof of concept, but most of the time with an idea, and I have to decide where to invest, if they make an impact, if they will succeed in what they want to do. Which brings me to the second question, what are the most important things? So the joke is that I have only 3 things that are important. It's the team, and then the team, and then again the team. My hope for Latin America, at the end of the day, technology is nothing if you don't have the right people behind that. And the people are the most important and valuable resource that we have in our company. So we We have a strong eye on the teams because they need to be very good athletes. They have to be good swimmers. They have to be able to come back when they fail and to make a comeback as fast as possible. And sometimes they have to fail fast, which is part of life, but it's also very important to know how to fail and where to fail and when to fail, and not fail after $100 million in 10 years, but fail after 1 year and several $100,000. So we give to all our entrepreneurs about $800 to $1 million at first to develop their ideas in our physical incubator in the north of Israel, very close to Haifa, 20 minutes from Haifa. And they spend with us two years in order to develop their technology. And I can say that if somebody will ask me, what is that I do for life? I have a very simple question. I say no 99% of the time, all day long. I say no to ideas that I don't think that will cause an impact or they are unique, because we don't invest in marginal problems or in marginal solutions. We are looking for jumps in technology and the problem solver. And second, and most important, I just try to pick the right cherries from a box. The whole story of a venture capital is pick the right cherries, trying to pick the right teams with the right ideas. So more than the team, I look at, first of all, at the impact. What will be the impact that this idea will cause into the human society, into the human beings if they succeed? It's very important for us. As I said, we are talking about food, agriculture, water, clean tech, medical devices. We don't do biotech because we believe that there are enough drugs in this world, that there are enough remedies in the world, but we have to avoid the problems instead of curing or remediating the problems. It's very, very stupid to create the problems that we will have to solve tomorrow. This is what you see in the corona. And I'm not saying that the corona is something that somebody did in purpose, but we are paying the analphabetism, the lack of know-how, the lack of understanding of a very known or very simple virus. It's a new virus, but it's a virus. A virus. So the second thing is an impact. The third thing will be, of course, the idea. We don't invest in technologies that are well known. We don't copy paste technology from Germany or from the United States into our incubator, our VC. And we only develop companies and we support companies that are trying to develop something absolutely new, unique, patentable. And the last thing will be the go-to-market, the business model, because unfortunately, and I am a PhD in chemistry, so I'm a technologist, I like nature, I love technology, but there is no doubt that technology by itself will not solve anything if the technology will not turn to be a very, very good business. Or in other words, the most important way, and maybe the only way for a technology to make an impact in the society will be if they succeed to make a very, very big business. They will sell a lot of products to many billions of people. And this is the only way that I see that we can make a very big company, build a very big company, and make a lot of money at the same time. So this is what we do in Terra. We try to do good and make a lot of money at the same time. And those are the main factors that we take a look when we invest either in seed or in round A stage.
Okay, so team, then you said impact, idea, and go to market. Okay.
Yes, the impact is something that is very, very peculiar to Terra Venture Partners. I am sad to say, but most of the money of the world, let's say 90% of the money of the world, is going to projects that are not impact investments, but things that are related to gambling, to gaming, to fintech, to cyber. That is very important to sell in the internet, to make business model and applications that will be very important, but not real impact, not critical things for human beings. So the impact is only my point of view, but of course, any other VC will tell you that it's the team, the technology, the go-to-market, and the business plan. And of course, if they will change something for good, no doubt.
Okay, great, great. Thank you. Sorry, Ilana, I see that Julia has joined us. Can you open your camera, please? Julia, are you with us?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Julia, she is Julia Schifter. She's from TIPA. TIPA is a startup and now is a scale-up. And I will I will ask you if you can introduce yourself and tell us a few words about TIPA, who you are, what do you do, and in very short, if you can tell us how did you came to being from a startup to growth into a scale-up.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Good morning, and thanks, Rina, for the opportunity to speak to your audience. So my name is Julia Schifter. I'm a VP of Strategy Analysis at TIPA. I've been with TIPA almost from day one, basically when we started off 5 semi-employees in the basement of our CEO, and now a company with about 50 employees. So I can share a little bit the story of TIPA has started and how it's come to where it is. And of course, there's still a lot of things for us to do as a company. So TIPA in general is a company that is developed and is now producing and selling compostable packaging solution. We looked into a very particular segment in plastic packaging, which is flexible. That would be the soft packages like a granola bar wrapper, potato chip bag, a rice bag. The vast majority of these packages are actually non-recyclable. And our CEO has thought very early on that doesn't make a lot of sense. Today, it's a $102 billion industry worldwide. And the idea was, how can we move away from these non-sustainable solutions to something that is more closer to nature? And the idea was, in a sense, to emulate nature and look at an orange peel, for example, or banana peel, and the way they protect goods before you've consumed the food, but once you've consumed it, that package is still part of nature and not something that will last for 500 years. And this has been an idea way before what we're seeing today. I mean, I think worldwide, the acknowledgement that plastic is causing a lot of challenges to humanity have only became evident since 2018. That wasn't the situation before. And so in a sense, the sense of urgency of the markets was not yet developed as it is today, but still the idea was, maybe like Harold said, was quite big. How can we address such a huge industry as a small startup in Israel with a cool idea? So the journey for us started, I think, as the majority of startups do start with some angel investors, family and friends and family, some very little money that basically was allowing our CEO to make some technology validations just to make sure that the idea is viable enough, and just to sense the appetite that there may be or the need in the world for such solutions. Once that was established, we've moved to after about 2 years, to a seed round that was a $2 million round that was then led by an Israeli-Canadian agri-tech company or venture capital. They are interested mostly in agri-tech, but they thought it just a dot connected there between making sure we have enough food in the world and that the packages for the food are sustainable. And in general, TIPA doesn't fall in any, we're not cyberspace, we're not, usually when you talk about green technologies, it's usually water or energy. So we never, and still we don't necessarily fall into a very specific segment where VCs are investing. That wasn't one of our challenges as a company, still is. But anyhow, the idea, the magnitude of the idea kind of caught the attention of the venture capital companies we were approaching. So that round led us to basically enter the market, allowed us another 2 years of R&D work to basically to commercialize the first products, along, of course, some business development work to make sure what are the early adopter markets and what would be the early adopter customers and where do we focus on in terms of applications, etc. And basically lead the first initial sales. Past that stage, we've raised another $11 million. This was then led by a venture capital company based in Hong Kong that again were quite interested in the idea of what we were trying to do. This is obviously they invest in impact and like big ideas that can change the world, and they thought that there's something about what we do that makes sense. And again, this is 2013, way before what we're seeing today. But again, people with vision and persuasiveness that if you hang long enough, then the idea will filter through a lot of the challenges that you have. Vis-a-vis that, I have to say we've always got money from the government of Israel. The government here is very much attuned and acknowledges that innovation and early start innovation needs funding, because this is the beginning stages of any company are very high risk for financiers. And the more mature you are, the less risky you are, so it's more comfortable people will be, or companies, to putting money into your ideas. But the early stages is a very, very tough one for people with ideas. So thankfully, the Israeli government acknowledges that, and we were lucky for many years to have some extra also money coming from the government to sponsor the activities of the company. After we went through that milestone of reaching the first customer base, which was Europe, and still is for us, the major customer base for us is still Europe. We then raised again another $11 million to expand activities, and basically moved from very initial sales into market into a couple of $1 million sales in the market. The last round we've raised was a year ago. That was a $25 million round. That round was already 6 different entities invested in TIPA. So it was a much more complicated also fundraising process. And that is, like you mentioned, Rina, is the kind of the scale up stage for us, in which the technology is established, the market viability is established, the customer base exists, and now how do you expand and go broader with more applications into the market, with more markets that you are servicing? How do you really make that big idea that you started off 8 years ago really one that dominates or changes as an impact on what we do as humanity, and of course financial impact for the company and for investors. So we are in the midst of that stage. It's not the best time to be in a growth stage where you have COVID. But I can still say that even though this is COVID times, and of course very hard to get attention of new customers, the company continues to grow even in this period of time. And again, it's there'll be another fundraise which will hopefully get us into break even. And at that point at time, the company will also already be able to be self-sustained, and the model of how we finance ourselves will slightly differ than how it is today.
Oh, thank you very much. And the point that I want to mention is the last words you said, that even with having more than almost a $50 million investment, you are not break even. And this is amazing, because that's a startup and that's a scale up, that even with so much money invested in it, you are not break even. I'm sure you will, but this is an important message for the Latin American market when we talk about startups and scale ups, that they don't have to expect for even now you have 8 years on the market and 8 years of investment. you are not on break-even, and this is very interesting. So thank you. Now I would like to come back to you, Ilana, if possible. And I have a question, and I would like you now to help us to combine the dots, okay? You know, and you know very well the Israeli ecosystems. You work with startups like TIPA and a lot others that some of them are at the seed phase, others Series A, Series B. Can you share with us what can, or which, in your opinion, are the most relevant attitudes that startups must have in Israel to succeed? This could be a question. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I heard today a phrase that when I knew that I was coming to this webinar, I thought that it was really important to mention. Churchill once said that you must never let a good crisis to go to waste. And I think that that's something that every Israeli startup enables and embraces. Crises are opportunities in disguise, and Israeli startups take all opportunities. I think that take all opportunities to succeed. I think that 1 week after we heard from the COVID crisis, we had more than 100 startups in Israel that made a pivot in order to adapt their product to help solve or the COVID crisis itself, or any problem that was adjacent to the COVID itself. But I think that a startup, in order to succeed, it has to take into consideration many facts. First of all, they need to balance between the need to do things by themselves because they are just starting a new way. So they need to do it yourself in many aspects, but there are aspects that are important still to be checked by a professional, and lawyering is one of them. Do-it-yourself lawyering is a mistake that we face with many young startups, and that along the way makes many complications. It's important to keep it simple. It's important to take it into consideration the support and the financing that the startups needs in order to elect the most efficient way to do the lawyering. But startups need to carefully pick their advisors, not only lawyers, but their advisors in general. Another important fact is IP. IP is the main asset of startups. Startup, in order to succeed, need to understand what IP means, what intellectual property means. If the IP that they are willing to create, it will truly worth it, if it will be theirs. If they are working for, at the same time, another company that could compromise their IP, if they are doing a master's degree in a university that would compromise their IP, if they are still in the military, that would compromise their IP, something that they need to take into consideration, to take it seriously and to do it properly. They need to map and deal with possible satellites around the venture, the employers, the academia, the institute, and how to cooperate and to use each of the players in the ecosystem in the best way possible. They need to know when to go to Harold and when to go to the Israeli Innovation Authority. I think that understanding the differences, the pros and cons of each option is important in order to succeed, and also in order to elect the path that a startup wants to pursue. Startups need to make their IP a focal point from the very beginning, also in order to avoid tax issues. Another important issue that needs to be taken into consideration from the very, very beginning, it's the relationship between the founders. This is something that we see that founders tend to leave to a later stage. Many times friends are doing it together. They think that it will be okay, we trust, we know each other, but the time to set the boundaries, to set the limits and the terms of the cooperation is at the very beginning, is when everything is great between the partners, and not if and when problems come around. The founders need to think about the roles, the responsibilities of each partner. They need to take time to think how to slice the pie, to structure the equity, to assign roles and responsibilities, figuring decision-making. Decision-making is something that they need to think about, and to create procedures in order to make that also cost-effective and also correct for them personally. They need to handle IP assignment, future potential departing of founders. The founders agreement is an important thing that every startup has to take care of from the very beginning. Another thing that we see that startups sometimes think, and when is the correct timing to do so, is when to incorporate the company. We think that the earlier the better, also because tax implications, but not only. Limiting the personal liability is really important in order to allow the failing and succeeding that Harold told us before. In order to securely fail, it's much easier if you do that through a company and not personally. Also, in order for the company to be able to give equity compensation, to give options to employees and others. Another factor that is important is that at the beginning, we see that many companies tend to give equity to consultants and to advisors in general, because they're short of money at the very beginning, short of funds, and they give equity when instead of paying for work. It's an inefficient tax outcome, and it's not always correct. They need to check if that's indeed the situation. And last but not least at all, they need to take care to take properly care of the structuring of the investment. They need to choose an efficient investment way. They need to consider if they need to go for a convertible loan or a convertible round or a safe round or an equity round. This is really legalities, but it's the way the company makes its path and chooses his future. So I think that's the reason that I started from picking the right advisors, because understanding the investment terms, that it's something essential for a startup, it's one of the most important decisions that a startup could take. I think that in short, I try to summarize the most important issues really shortly.
Yes, I wrote them, so let me recap and see if, as you mentioned, the first one you say the mentors, advisors, this is where to start from. Then you mentioned other issues like the IP of the company, the relationship between the founders, the equity distribution, when to incorporate the company, and last but not least, the investors and the structure of the investment.
Summarized perfectly.
Great. So now we will write on the chat a link to a site where you can, we invite you to answer to 2 questions to every one of the participants if you want, and we will show, but in 15 minutes, we will show the results. We have 2 questions, so everybody that wants, please enter the link, follow the link, and participate. Now we are, the issue, and what I would like to ask, the same question for the 3 of you, for Ilana, Harold, and Julia. Julia, I'm saying like in Spanish. Julia, how you say, Julia or Julia? Okay. What I would like to ask, I know that the three of you work with Latin American markets. And Harold, you mentioned that you have some business in Brazil, in Mexico. I know Ilana is representing the Latin American part of the Pearl Cohen. And Julia, I know you are been working with Grupo Bimbo, that was when we met, we know. So my question would be, how can we help to connect the dots between Israeli startups and the Latin American corporates of investors? I'm sorry, I didn't say it, I will repeat. How can we help to connect the dots between Israeli startups and Latin American corporates or investors? This is an issue that we work a lot of time with this kind of issues. It's not simple. We work with corporates and we try to connect them with the startups, and sometimes we have at the beginning problems, at the middle, at the end, and all the time we have, I don't know if called problems, we have challenges. So maybe Julia, would you like to start your experience? I know that you had a challenging experience with Grupo Bimbo, as to tell us some words and what we can learn out of it. And just a few words because we don't have too much time. Thank you.
Yes, sure. So first of all, on the positive side, I think there are a lot of similarities actually between the Israeli mentality and Latin America. And it's both, I think, are, you know, the business casualness, the very direct and open mindedness, and also just playing fair and equal. So and also very, very family-like and very personal. So I think in that sense, it's very easy for Israelis almost to connect with a lot of the Latin American attitudes, because it's very much similar to Israel, which is very different. Let's say if you were working in some other markets in Western Europe or in the US. So in that sense, I think it's great. And I think these two things are very important. Being very direct when you're conducting business, and also being very human and friendly, and making the personal connections is something extremely important in business. So in that sense, I think these are great countries to work with. Of course, your technology has to be relevant for the markets you're operating. There are some.
qué bueno.
Please go
on. There are some. When you say startup and corporates, I think you have some challenges that by definition a startup thinks and operates and understands things in a different way than a corporate. So it doesn't matter where the corporate is based. It may be anywhere in the world. Corporates are very slow to make changes, are very slow in general to take decisions. It's a very bureaucratic situation, and startups need to be very fast because their cash is burning out and they need to generate sales. And Israelis in particular are, I guess this is why we're called startup nation in a sense, because it's also our mentality. Israelis are very quick. They want a quick reply. They want to get the business done as soon as possible, and that is just not the culture of corporates in general. We're seeing slightly more maybe casual treatment of time in Latin America, but again, I have to say, we have very select experience with Latin America, because we're not yet on the ground. There was a specific relationship that started with Bimbo, but it's not that we're on the ground yet. So one particular story cannot tell you give you the bigger picture. But I think in terms of how we've learned how to work with corporates in general, and with the Latin American attitude that we've found, is that as soon as you set the scene and both parties understand the expectations, and when you create a real Gantt and a real process with deadlines, etc., So all the parties know at all time where, where the project is, what is the next step, who's expected to do what. So when everything is very clear and not just verbally discussed, which is extremely important, but again, everything is just kind of registered. It just made it, for us, that was the transition we've made, and it made it much more successful when we started to be much more direct and put the process in a very transparent way to both parties. So that has been our success in that front.
Okay, great. So just also 2 words. So you say to settle expectations and to have a clear and transparent process is the basis for cooperation based on your experience.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Harold, you remember, or should I repeat the question?
No, I remember, and it's a very good question, and I understand that it's a very tough problem for all the people that are trying to connect the dots between those two, Israel and the continent, because nobody understands that Latin America is like China in practical terms. For Israel, the Latin American market is exactly as big as China in terms of people multiplied by the power of buying. Unfortunately, there is nothing that Israel can bring to Latin America other than innovation. Because of historical reasons, because of all the reasons that we have discussed, Israel is one of the most innovative countries in the world, and unfortunately, we don't have an internal market, so we need to think about problems that are not existing abroad in order to bring new solutions to continents that will welcome this solution and see it as a new solution. So the solution is very simple. I have a lot of contact with Latin American markets, and also my previous life was very active in Brazil and Mexico in the field of flavors and fragrances. So I have, and I'm a Latino, so I have very good connections there. And what I'm trying to do, and what I'm trying to do right now, the corona is a bit of a problem, but I was in the middle of a trip in all Latin America, is to bring investors of those countries to Israel. And at the same time, it will not only create a connection between the VC ecosystem of innovation in Israel and the LPs and the industry that they represent, but more important, they will be my partners, my fathers, my mentors, or my big brothers when I bring those technologies that we develop into the Latin American markets. Practically speaking, time is the only limited resource. So when I want to penetrate Brazil, and I will try to do it alone, or every company will do it by themselves, it will take a lot of time. I'm talking about a year or 2, and maybe more. If we do the same thing by using our connections of our own investors in the ecosystem, and they will bring us in a matter of days and some calls to the relevant persons in the market that we are trying to develop in those amazing markets like is Latin America, the pathway is absolutely amazing. I mean, the results are amazing. The people that are helping me, I have a very strong group of investors from Latin America. I can say the most amazing entrepreneurs in Latin America are part of my fund, and they help me a lot when I have to go back to Brazil, to Mexico, to Colombia, to Chile. I have investors from all those countries. And of course, from Uruguay, my beloved country that is very small, but very, very active. So I think that again, we are talking about businesses. And the way to do the dots connection, as you say, is by cooperation of LPs, very, very important and powerful LPs, people that are very, very intelligent, very, very successful in their countries, with amazing industries that we can't even dream about the size of the companies that I met in Latin America. And then they will be my tunnel, and my brother and my sister and my big brother when I come to the Latin American market. This is something that I see I'm doing it for the last 10 years, and it's an amazing, amazing help. And this is the best way, because Israel is not a market for Latin American companies. Let's face it, we don't have people. So we cannot offer anything but innovation to be brought into the country, into the continent. But this is the formula, and I see it in real life. I have, as I said, a very nice group of investors, and they are very, very helpful for them and for us, for each one of the companies, because they want to create new businesses, and if not, they will connect me with the right people with 2 phone calls, and that's it. So again, I think that there is no difference at all between the innovation power and the brains that I see in all Latin America, with no exception, no matter where are we talking about. And the only thing that we have to do is to understand that us, and I will tell you a secret that I didn't tell you until now, but 95% of the money fueling the high-tech industry in Israel, the startup nation, and all this story about Israel is coming from abroad, not from Israel. So you can understand that if Americans are coming to Israel to invest, and Europeans the same, and now a lot of Chinese coming to be part of the ecosystem in Israel, I have no doubt that there is a very, very warm place for Latin American investors to come and not only invest in those ecosystems in Israel, but also to bring those technologies back to the continent, and it's a win-win formula, no doubt about it.
Okay, great. So correct me, I just pick one point of what you mentioned, but you said the importance, in order to connect the dots, are these investors or LPs that you have, they have their own connections in the Latin American market, and using in a good way their connections is the way that you can get wherever necessary or interesting to go.
Absolutely. It saves me 100% of the time, and time is money, I know, but time is more important than money. So they save me a lot of headaches, and they make the connection in a very, very smooth way. They are happy to do it because they are part of the group. They are limited partners in our VC, and they are amazing, and they are the most bright people in the continent. So they are successful because they did something good with their own businesses, and they are tremendously helpful in our connection to Latin America. And again, Latin America is nothing less than America, Europe, or China in terms of potential. And then I welcome this type of cooperations. And there is no doubt that it's time to strengthen the links between Latin America and Israel, and this is the time, yesterday.
Okay, great, thank you. Ilana, we will like to hear your opinion on this issue of connecting the dots based on your experience. And then after a few words, I will ask Rachel to show us the answers to the question we have came up. But first, Ilana, please.
I don't have much to add because I think that Julia and Harold summarized it really well. I think that at the end, it's all about people. And it's all about connecting the people in the most effective way. So on one hand, you need to take into consideration the complexities of working between startups and multinationals or big corporation. That's not private, that's not related specifically to the relationship between Israel and Latin America, but applies every time that you are talking about working between a startup and a corporation. But on the other hand, you need to take into consideration the cultural differences between Latin America and Israel, that even if we can think on a first sight that Israelis and Latin American are really similar because they are both warm and emotional cultures, that's a fact. They're both emotional and warm cultures, but on the other side, Israelis are highly confrontational and Latin Americans are tending to zero confrontational, and it's something that we need to take into consideration. I think that getting to know the other's culture before you get into the negotiations table or before considering an opportunity will make things go smoother and efficiently. This week we had a situation between a Latin American corporation and an Israeli startup in which the CEO of the startup shouted and hung up the phone on the Latin American corporation. They were in shock. They were offended. They thought that it's something that it can never happen in business and it's offensive and we will never get passed by that. And we explained to them that in Israel, it's not a sign of disrespect. We understand that it's a lack of models, of manners in the way Latin Americans see things. But I think that having a person that can explain the other's culture to each other helps. Being the LPs investors, being you, Rina, through Noga Plus, being a lawyer that understands both cultures. I think that there are many ways in which you can have a buffer between cultures, but many times that's needed in order to soften the relationship and to make things happen faster. Because as Julia said at the very beginning, and Harold has been saying that from the very beginning, that time is from the essence here. The time in which things happen, it's basic for Israelis, and it's something that Latin Americans tend to forget about. So we need a buffer many times in order to get things happen.
Thank you. You said something very interesting. You said that there are two different levels. You have the corporate level and the startup level, that it's not different if it's a Latin American or an Israeli. Every corporate has their different paces and different interests. So this is, it has to do with a cultural, with a regional issue. But on the other hand, there is this different cultures between startups from Israel and the culture of Latin America that sometimes shock, with the example that I mentioned, that I know it, and it's as you describe it. Is okay. So thank you to all of you. Before finalizing and saying a few words, Rachel, could you help us with showing us, okay, this is the questions. Do you believe that Latin American entrepreneurs are mainly focused on technologies? And what was the results? Okay, most people, more than half of the people think that they are focused on technologies, and the others say no. I don't agree. I think that the entrepreneurs not are mainly focused on technology, but this is what our participants said. And we have another questions. What is the main thing Latin American can benefit from when it comes to Israeli innovation? And the answer is technology and mindset. Oh, 50-50 we have. So I think this summarizes what we also talked. Now another answer we have. So this is what Harold told us, that we have innovation in Israel, we have technology. This is what we have to offer to the Latin American market. I also believe in the mindset. We have a kind of thinking that can be shared with our colleagues in Latin America on how to fail and how to fail quickly, how to be a little bit aggressive, not too much, not to hang the phone. But okay, these are our answers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel. And I would like to thank you all of you for attending this webinar and encourage you to be part of our upcoming sessions in the future. We will write here our info mail if you want to have more information regarding the Facebook or LinkedIn pages that we have there more information. And for the Latin American participant, I would like to discuss, if you would like to discuss how to incorporate some elements of the Israeli ecosystem into your reality, please send me a mail to Rina. I see it's here, rina@nogaplus.com. And for the Israeli participants who want to do business with Latin America, we will be more than happy to connect you. We are looking on new website. We are working on our new website, so it will be very soon there with more details. You can visit them. This is our site is www.nogaplus.com. I would ask Harold, Ilana, and Julia if you would like to share with us your mail, if somebody has any specific questions to ask. And once again, thank you for being here. May have a great morning and a great evening. Tomorrow here in Israel, we are celebrating our Jewish New Year. So I would like to wish everyone here to have a great year with lots of sweet moments, enormous success. And as Ilana said at the beginning, let's take this coronavirus as an opportunity and try to rethink, reorganize, and have a great, happy new year. In Hebrew, we said Shana Tova. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.